Welcome everybody to the Depths of Motherhood podcast. This is a special season dedicated to the tribe of the mother. But also I know any mothers listening will find this extremely valuable. I've created each episode to offer simple, digestible, and supportive information, which I hope will educate and inspire anyone who listens. So this is by popular demand. Please help us to educate and support the tribe holding the mother. Look forward to passionate and highly knowledgeable guests dedicated to reclaiming the essence of birth and embracing conscious parenting. Throughout our time together, our guests will serve as the guiding voices, illuminating the path towards a deeper understanding of preconception, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. This is with the mother and the baby being the center of the exploration. In the show notes, you'll discover the link to Nourished Mother package, which will offer many different resources to complement each episode. This is free for all members in the Women's Circle, or £33 for everybody who just wants to purchase the package. A heartfelt thank you to our incredible guests and immense gratitude to my partner for supporting me on this creation. And finally, last but not least, special thank you to Araya, my daughter, for being the endless well of inspiration. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this week. I really hope that you and your family are well. Today, we are joined by Brittany Zeer, a woman whose calling to support mothers and women is deeply rooted in both study and lived experience. Through her journey, she's come to embody an understanding of the sacred design of women, wisdom that has been broken, buried, and is now being gently rewoven through her work. Brittany is a student of the INNATE Postpartum Care approach, rooted in the physiological design of women and the 4 foundational pillars: rest, warmth, body care, and nourishment. But more than anything, her work is built on the heartbeat of community, a remembering that we were never meant to do this alone. In this conversation, we explore the continuum from preconception to postpartum as a rite of passage. We also speak to the ritual of closing the bones, a practice that shows up across cultures from Mexico to Russia to Morocco, reminding us that the body holds stories and deserves to be honored and held as we step into motherhood. Whether it is your first, second, third, whether it is a month down the line or 30 years, how we can hold space for these practices, these ceremonies for one another, to really call our soul home and close the bones. This also weaves into rites of passage in general, and how these pillars of health can really support us in holding space for ourselves and other people when it comes to crossing this bridge from the known to the unknown. And I give my own example of my journey through grief and how I held these pillars of support really closely to me: the rest, the warmth, the body care, the nourishment. And I really felt in these unknown territories, these pillars really supported me to have that anchor to home, to safety, to comfort, so that I could find the strength within me to move forward. And this was a huge breakthrough for me, because I know sometimes trying to hold space for my friends and family as they go through things, I can feel my nervous system. Well, what am I going to do to show up? How can I help them? But when you bring these foundational pillars to mind, it is such a connection to the heart, because there are options that you can bring into the relationship as they're going through this rite of passage, making space for them to be with themselves, to be nourished, bringing them some food, offering your hands to soften their body with body work, just being there to listen and be in the space, knowing that you don't have to change or fix anything, but you can bring nourishment to that experience. And once again, going into the conversation of rite of passage, it is not just this one person who goes through it. They go down into the depths and they have their experience and they collect the gems, the light that they bring back up to the surface for the whole of the community. So it is this collective journey that we are on. And so it's no surprise that many of us have been conditioned to feel that we either have to fix or change something, or give people space to go through it on their own. And there's so many examples in between. But what is happening is there is a disconnect from the human experience, from really having the ability to sit with another human being as they go through their experiences and not look away and not distract. Be with it with so much love and so much trust. So this is an invitation to everyone listening, whether you're doing this for yourself or holding space for others, just to know that it's never too late for these moments to be honored. Never too late to close what was left open. So thank you so much for being here. If you have a moment, I would really appreciate if you would give us a review on whichever platform you are listening to. So as with every episode, all the links is in the show notes for you to go and check in with Brittany or go and see what we have happening in the Women's Circle online. Shall we take a moment now to check in with our body, to see how we are, to orientate to this space? If you take a look around you gently, letting your eyes wander above and below, to the sides, behind you, and then coming to look straight forward. Take a deep breath in, welcome that breath in, and then notice what parts of your body are supported right now by the earth, by a chair, and let yourself soften into that. Let there be that connection. And another inhale, exhale to soften. Thank you so much for being here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you? Where in the world are you?
I'm in Costa Rica. Costa Rica. I don't know why I feel the need to sing it.
It sounds like a place that you just want to sing all the time now.
Where are you? You're in Canada.
I'm in Canada.
Yes, because you're doing the Earth Daughters Festival.
Earth Daughters. Yeah, that's going to be in Golden, BC. So it's about 3 hours from where I am. So I'm in Alberta. I'm really excited and I'm really honored and grateful to have been invited to be a part of that and just share a little bit of the wisdom. And it's kind of in anticipation. My teacher, Rochelle Garcia Saliga of Innate Traditions, so they have invited her to be one of the anchoring guides. She wasn't able to come this year, but she'll be there next year. And so they asked me to do just kind of like a 1-hour class of an introduction into innate postpartum care in preparation for her to come next year. Well, that's really exciting for me. I haven't met her in person. I've just done the training with her and everything. So when they told me about that, I was like, yes, absolutely. I'm okay, great. Little bit of imposter syndrome. And even just in having this conversation with you today, I have all of my notes here to make sure that like I'm staying on topic and like sharing this information with honor and everything. But I notice this little bit of imposter syndrome that comes up too.
I think that's it. Because we're all trying to bring this wisdom back. It's for many of us, we haven't lived with it through our lives. It's not something that's been passed on or we've been born into. So we're learning it and then trying to speak it. And sometimes, especially the way that Rochelle teaches it, is that feeling like inside of your body, you get it. And then you're kind of, her words help to bring it out into the world, but then you're also finding your own authentic way to say what you're feeling. The stories that she brings in and the words that she uses really hits home to look at a different perspective, to really be like, oh, we've got to get courageous here and step up and really live it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen and it's just going to become words or quotes on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it there. That's the biggest part and the most challenging part. And as I went through the postpartum care course, like you said, like she speaks with such truth and such conviction, and I can feel it in my body. I'm like, oh, this is exactly it. Just like my own journey of arriving here and finding her as well. It was like so divine because I had done full spectrum doula trainings and I left those with more questions than answers. And I was like, there has to be more. Like, I know that there's this really big gap. I don't know how to fill it. I'm not seeing this emulated anywhere. And one night in December of 2021, I sat in front of my altar here behind me and I just cried. I was like, I need a teacher. I need a community. Like, I know that I'm supposed to do something. I don't know how to get there or where to even look. And the next day, an ad popped up for her innate postpartum care course. And I wasn't following her. I had no idea who she was. And I got this like full body, yes, like this is absolutely it. And I was like, wait, what? But like I've just spent the last year doing doula trainings. And now I'm going to do like a whole other 9-month long training. And like there was all of the stories that came up around all of that, but like it was this deep soul yes. And I was like, I don't understand it, but okay, great. And so I love the way that have you done that one, the postpartum care
No,
course?
I'm hoping to get onto it next year.
Yeah, it's just like it's so transformational. And the way that she speaks and everything, it's like it is this inside out work, right? She's like, we're gonna push all of these buttons and we're gonna like unlearn everything that you have ever learned so that we can come back to what truth is and like what truth feels like in your body. And so it's one thing to feel truth in your body, but then to be able to translate that out to other people in a way that like they can get it and understand it and
Yeah.
like see the benefits and the transformation of it all as well. The thing that I love so much about the innate postpartum is like there's the 9 month like in container, right? Like where we're gathering once a week to
Yeah.
go over everything. And then there's the 9 month like exo gestation. So now we're doing case studies and we're starting to formulate how to do all of this on our own as well. And then bring our own unique medicine out into the world. And I finished that December of 22. Yeah, it was all of 2022 that I was in this. So all of last year was my integration in, and I've been hosting bi-weekly calls with a bunch of other women who are in that container too, so that we can continue to support one another in this evolution of everything. And it has just been through all of that that I have been finding my way and bringing this out into my community. And it has been such a transformational experience. And I finally now am starting to feel this sense of confidence and the sense of like, I don't like the authority, but like not in a sense of like top down authority, but just like I have important information and wisdom to share. And people are finally starting to open up to receive it. And yeah, I feel very honored and yeah.
Mm. It's like when that inspiration takes over because it's a deep knowing, there's no way to keep it inside would be abusive to yourself because it like wants to come out. Like I totally get it.
Yeah.
And everything you've just said, I'm going to put that in the podcast as well. I love what you were sharing there because it is what I'm seeing in my own life and what I experienced through my own postpartum was this missing link. And this is, I think, why many people get into it is because they see that there's a part that's missing. They see that the mothers are extremely depleted and not just like in postpartum, but going on through life. And then there's almost this forgetting that if we don't nourish the mothers in immediate postpartum, there's a forgetting that this is going to carry on. It doesn't just disappear. It continues to be held inside of the body. When what we're doing now, where we're this creation for season 7, we're moving through preconception to postpartum, and we're having people talk about little topics within each so that we can really bring to light how important this is, this whole journey. Going back to what was our relationship with our first bleed, and reclaiming that and seeing the importance in it, and that it is this continuum. But especially as we're here today and you've done this course with Rochelle, which, oh, wow, it sounds incredible. And as you're speaking, I'm like, sold. I've been seeing it come up year after year. And I'm like, this time, like next year, I'm going to get on it. And I usually miss it because we're traveling around. I'm like, no, this time I'm going to definitely try to get on it. But I feel that, yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing about your insights because whenever anyone goes on a course with Rochelle, like I'm on one now myself, like I mentioned, you don't just receive the wisdom, you like open this door to the depths of yourself and then you're like, okay, I'm diving in. And then you pull something out and you're like, she didn't say that, but this is what I got from it. And it's kind of linked and I need to share it. I'm curious with what you've learned and your community. How are you finding that you're able to like transfer this information about postpartum into your community or the people that you're supporting? And with that as well, before we get into the depths of the closing of the bone ceremony, which is what we're going to talk about, what are these pillars like in a simple way that we're really focusing on when it comes to the care of the mother?
Mhm. Yeah. So everything that Rochelle speaks about and the whole foundation of everything is rooted in our physiological design as women. So wherever we come from, whatever land we were born on or raised on, or our ancestry comes from, the physiological design of women is the same and has been since the beginning of time. So the 5 essentials of postpartum care, there's 4 pillars and the foundation. So the 4 pillars are rest, warmth, body care, and nourishment. And then the foundation of that is community support, because those 4 pillars can't stand, they can't be possible without that foundation of community support. And as we look at our modern time right now and how disconnected we are from community, we can see that the bridge that we need to build is back towards community, and that we can talk as much as we want about the importance and the physiological design of those 4 pillars and of community support as well. But without that community support, none of it is actually possible. So it has been really challenging and also really liberating at the same time to have these kinds of conversations, to share this wisdom, to share all of the different ways that we can incorporate in those 4 pillars to be able to support us, not only in the early postpartum time, but lifelong. Because what I learned through my own experience, like, I'm not a mother, I have never been pregnant nor had a baby, and that's not part of my life journey. I now see through this whole process as well. I had to reckon with all of that too. But I now see that my role is like, I need to be the maiden to support the mothers, because we need both, right? Like, we can't just rely on mothers to be supporting mothers. Mothers only have so much capacity and resourcing. The energy of the maiden is so important and nourishing and supportive for the mother. But also, I got a download through Rochelle's class as well that, like, I'm resting for my ancestors, I'm resting for my lineage in this lifetime. And so my impact now I'm seeing is like so much more horizontal. Like, my capacity now to support others, to support mothers, and the ripple effect of where that can go is horizontal versus like, if I'm to have my own, my energy is going to be more restricted. Not saying that it's not possible. It absolutely 1000% is, but we need both. And that was one of the biggest pieces of my own inside out work through this whole journey of the imposter syndrome. But I'm a mother in energy and in the ways that I support and hold others as well. So we can talk about the physiological design all that we
And I
want,
just,
but with
what you just said then, you made my breasts tingle. So I'll tell you why. Whenever I have this oxytocin rush, because like my eyes are watering, anyone who's watching the video, my nipples start to get erect. I'm still breastfeeding, so I'm super sensitive. But I'm like tingling from you saying that, because this conversation with my friends this week is all about like, why is it the mothers holding the mothers? Like, when I gave birth, I created a mothers and babies circle within 6 weeks. I didn't know anyone, but I'm like, I need support. But we came and we're mothers depleted. We couldn't support one another. And we tried, but it just wasn't there. The roots weren't there. Everyone needed someone to support. One mother needed the support around them. And I love what you've just said. And I think the reason that it just moved through my whole body was because I feel like your energy and what you're bringing right now through the conversations you're having and through showing up is encouragement and a clearer vision to maidens, to women without children, to anyone who's looking to support the mother, because it's really needed and it's so purposeful and extremely like the only way forward I can see is through that, where there is humans showing up with this energy and the mother being in the center and that kind of moving forward, and it not just being this isolated vision, but this whole interconnectedness of our humanity evolving. So I had to share, because my breast was like, if you don't say these words, I'm not giving any more milk.
oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. And that's really what we see, right? Like, it's mothers coming together to support one another, but they're so depleted themselves as well. And so it's almost like there is this little bit of community containment, community foundation, but again, not in the way that it's actually going to be like deeply nourishing and supportive. Like, we need both. And so this is something that has just really been up for me, that I've been having in conversation with other maidens recently too. And for me to speak this out loud publicly feels really huge, because I've been reckoning with this so much myself as well. I remembered why I wanted to share that piece, because so I myself am not a mother, but when I started the innate training, I was 7.5 years into daily migraines and fibromyalgia. Like, I was living with chronic pain. I had done all of the right things. I kept getting sicker. I eventually came off of all pharmaceuticals prior to joining this course. But what was so incredible for me was 3 months into this 9-month long program, as I'm integrating all of the pieces that I can into my life, into how I'm nourishing myself, how I'm tending to myself, my connection to my womb, my connection to my bleed, like this deep rooting into this remembrance and allowing it all to flow through me within 3 months. I woke up one day and I was like, I haven't had a migraine for like 10 days. This hasn't happened for 7.5 years. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, I can actually release this identity to living with chronic pain now. And it moves through my body. I only have 1 to 3 migraines a month now. I no longer live with chronic pain. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, so these 5 essentials for postpartum care are really just the 5 essentials for healing and thriving life in general, right?
Mm.
And so it has been through like my own lived experience of integrating all of this and then sharing little bits of wisdom with just people in my life, but especially mothers, and to witness how quickly the body can repair when we can honor the physiological design and come back to what is actually required to support thriving life so that we're no longer living, just surviving. Like I lived in that survival for 7.5 years for most of my life, but particularly in that time. And then I was like, wait a minute, I too can thrive. I can integrate all of this into my life. And so then it's through me embodying that and other people being like, what are you doing? How can I support this? And so because I have that lived experience in my body, even though it's different than this motherhood trajectory, people are seeing it and they're getting it and they're resonating with it. And so it has become easier for me to speak about it from
Mm.
that place too.
Wow, I
Yeah.
love what you just said. I recorded a podcast yesterday and I was talking about Awakening Fertility, the book. And it's the same thing, even though I didn't go through a time when I was consciously preparing to conceive, it was an accident. It was a surprise. But when I'm reading this book, Awakening Fertility, I realize, oh, this is just like the foundation for a healthy female body, a vibrant, healthy female body, whether the woman chooses to bring a physical human being into the world, or it's a creation of something else, or it's to show up for the community, like whatever it is. But the foundations are the same. And so it's like very similar to what you were talking about, that when we're moving through something, these pillars that come through with this, with the teachings from Rochelle, and just really what we need as human beings, they remain the
Mhm.
same. And also we're going through a big movement of grief right now through my family. And when I put two and two together with any rite of passage really
Mhm.
requires this time and these pillars of rest, nourishment, warmth, body work, they're the same actually. And when I had them pillars to look at, I was like, so much easier to care for myself and to offer support to my mother as well than being just like, I don't know what to do. I feel so chaotic and I don't know what's on the other side. But it's like, if you can just hold and put focus and attention onto them, then everything else seems to like fit into place and come so gently.
Yeah, I love that you brought in that grief piece too, because I'm also moving through grief in my family. We just lost my uncle recently. And so I have been very much in this like what can I do to support? And so one of the key things that I've brought into my community is nourishment. I'm really passionate about nourishment and like whole foods and like just and cooking with intention and love and like being in a certain energy and frequency, and how this has rippled out into my community has been really beautiful as well, to hear people's feedback. Like I can feel the difference. I can taste the difference. But in this whole experience of, feeling what can I do to support my family? All I had capacity for right now, because we live 3 hours apart and everything. So I was like, I can make some food. That's
Mm,
what I can do. I can make some broth. I can make some soup. I can make some really nourishing snacks. And I did all of that. And I met my cousin halfway with that. And to just hear about how meaningful that is, not only to them, but other people too, to be like, that is honestly one of the greatest things that you can do. And I weave all of these all five of these components into the nourishment it is that I'm creating as well. Like it is the community support elements, and the ingredients that I'm including in are like really nourishing for the body, anti-inflammatory, warming, healing, soothing. It's the rest so that you don't have to worry about how am I going to feed myself when I'm in the depths of all of this as well, right? Like it weaves all of that in. It really is so much more simple to support people than we think that it is when we just understand these these pillars and this foundation and how to weave it into community.
I love that. And also, as you're preparing that food, you're also supporting yourself because by using your hands and creating something, you're able to move through these times that can sometimes feel really sticky and chaotic and whew, like what to do, but you're using your physical body to create this whilst also like getting support from nature, bringing it
Yeah.
into the meal and smelling it and all of your senses awakening. It's like the most beautiful meditation. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sending you love and to your family as well, going through these times. Thank you for sharing. Whew, I feel like I could talk to you about everything forever. I'm like 2 hour
We could.
podcast. Here we go. All right. So tell me about closing the bone ceremony. I just uploaded a podcast. Well, whoever's listening to this now, it will feel like a long time ago, but to me, it was yesterday that I released it. It's like time travel. But my episode was about Watasca, which is a traditional Andean postpartum practice. And I've had closing of the bones before, but it's very similar. But they do this whole ceremony. They make this urine paste with herbs and they put it on your whole body and wrap you really tightly and then wrap you even more tightly with another sheet and then cover you in blankets. And it's like you turn into this well, for me anyway, it was so hot. I felt like I was in a sauna and it was super uncomfortable, but I'm really glad I did it. But I wanted to share that because there is so many differences in how this postpartum care happens around the world. But there is like the fundamental things that stay the same. The mother is at the center, supporting her healing and the bringing together of her body and welcoming her soul home. But with closing of the bones, where does this originate from? And yeah, what does it look like? So for people that haven't experienced it or even heard of it before, sounds kind of wild, like closing of the bones. Like, what are you going to do? What is it?
Yeah. Great question. So the origin of it, I mean, lots of people will think because most people hear about closing of the bones coming from Mexico, from Mexican traditions. Most people are familiar with the rebozo, which is the cloth that they use as the tool for the closing of the bones practice. And I'll get a little bit more into all of that. But closing of the bones is a cross-cultural postpartum care tradition with many different origins. Wherever it comes from, they would use a very similar cloth and very similar technique, but based on the lands in which they come from. So there's also origins in Russian tradition. I wrote down some notes here so that I can get the information accurate. And my apologies if I mispronounced certain things. I
People
don't
are
have
used to Dan's
the
podcast. I'm terrible at doing any pronunciation, even in English. So please try.
Okay, sounds good. So in Mexico, it's called Carrera la Cadera, which translates to closing of the hips or a closing, but it also originates from Russia and from Morocco as well. In Russia, they call it seven locks, and the cloth that they use is called the rushnet. In Morocco, it's called al shed, al meaning the, and shed meaning the pulling. And the cloth that they use is called the corzillas. And so all of this comes from Rochelle has written a beautiful blog post on the origins and the traditions and this understanding of that closing of the bones doesn't just originate from Mexico, but it comes from everywhere else. And you can look to lots of different pieces. And I can see even in that Andean tradition, like that in and of itself as well is a form of closing. It's this understanding, this physiological design that through pregnancy, you go through this massive expansion, right? Like you're producing 10 times the amount of relaxin, which is making all of your joints and tissues and ligaments so much more relaxed and stretchy and open. 100% of women are going to have some form of diastasis recti at the end of their pregnancy to whatever degree, that separation of the abdominal muscles and the abdominal walls. The pelvis opens and expands to create space for birth. So when we look at pregnancy, this is this massive expansion. Then when we also look at the rite of passage, this physiological design is of a rite of passage is like it's rooted in our physiological design. So when we look at the three phases of rite of passage, pregnancy is the separation, it's the ending, right? It's the life, it's who we were, who we are is dissolving and it's ending as we create and birth life. And then we go through the transition, the initiation, the birth portal, right? And lots of times we think that that itself is the rite of passage, but the third and final stage is this new beginning, is this return, which is representative of the postpartum time. So you go through this massive expansion, you go through this portal, but then how do we come back together to honor and close the body back up, not just physically, but energetically in honor of this rite of passage? And so we can see that we have lost rite of passages and this honoring and tending to throughout our modern day, even before that as well. So yeah, we can see that the origins of this closing of the bones practice comes from many different cross-cultural practices from around the world. Also, the rebozo that they use in the Mexican tradition, that actually came over with the Spaniards when they colonized 500 plus years ago. And the Spaniards got this from the Arabs long before all of that as well. So we can trace these lines back. Now, the indigenous people of Mexico still had a similar practice prior to the Spaniards coming in colonizing, and they used similar fabric. And what was that one called? So the origin of that predates the colonization, and they used a cloth that was called ayete or tilmalti. So, but it's very similar. And so the rebozo or many of these cloths, they're hand woven together in a very meticulous and intricate way. And it's wrapped around the body, starting from the head all the way down to the toes. And different traditions and different practices and ceremonies are going to use one cloth. They're going to use 7 cloths. There really is, the way that I was taught about it is there is no right or wrong way to do it. And whether it is practiced through a sacred ceremony or used as a physical body care practice without that ceremonial holding and tending to, again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's about anchoring in and honoring wherever this person is that you are holding and honoring. If they are a spiritual person and they want that, they want the ceremonial environment, then we can create that. But traditional midwives in Mexico will do this practice multiple times in the first 6 weeks postpartum. And it's not in a ceremonial setting. It's in this setting of like, we are physically, this is a body care practice. We're bringing your body back to center. So when we understand the physiology of why that needs to happen, again, back to this expansion, but so it's so that the pelvis can come back together. And most people don't even know that once you've gone through the birth portal, even if you don't birth your baby vaginally, even if it's through a cesarean birth, the pelvis is still opening. And if you're not receiving some form of body care at any point in your postpartum time, the pelvis will remain in that open birthing position. And so it's this closing, it's this coming back together, it's this containment energetically and physically, so that we can emerge from this experience more whole and intact and feeling like we're honored in whatever that is. But even in Mexico, like they're not just doing this practice on people, on women postpartum. They're doing this practice on if someone has gone through a death or is grieving something or major life transition. If you've had a broken bone, if you've had anything that has this like expansion and now we need to come back in and hold. So I don't know if now would be a good time to share or towards the end, but I have some personal experiences of offering this to people of all different kinds, that some stories that I would love to share on
Oh,
just
yeah.
what has come through all of that.
I would
If you
love,
had any other questions first, yeah.
well, there's so much coming up. I love the way that you have the history that you shared with this and the pathway, because I feel that as you shared that, and you also offer this reminder of the physiological benefits of why we're doing this, I feel that it can open this door to anyone that's listening to say, I can support the mother. I don't need to have a qualification. I don't need to have anything special. I can do this with the materials at home. We need to have the base, we need to have the education of what is happening to our body. But also, the way that social media is right now, it is showing us these extravagant ceremonies and these very expensive things, materials. And it's like, if you don't have this, then, or if you don't have this qualification, then you can't do this. But with what you're sharing, I feel like there's a softening that runs through my body, because it's like, as long as we show up understanding what has happened to the body of the mother going through this rite of passage, and also staying very deeply connected to her throughout what you're doing, like, are you okay? How does this feel? That then it can look any other way. It can look any way, really. But there is that understanding and intention as a foundation to bring the bones back together, to bring the body back into alignment. And I love how you describe the rite of passage, because I feel I've spoken about this a lot before, but in many conversations that I've been in with mothers, there is this, and I'm just saying mothers right now because we're talking about pregnancy, but through any rite of passage where they're kind of stuck in limbo stage. There's no one there to greet them on the other side of the bridge, to like fully witness them and see them in this new role that they show up with in their community. And I think I had the same experience because I didn't even have people around me that knew me. So it was like the people who saw me, they just saw me as pregnant mother. It was like an expectation. They didn't know me before, but I didn't have my family around to do that. So actually, like, this being witnessed it came later on. And I noticed it took me probably 2 years to fully believe that I was a mother. And I was trying my hardest to like understand and go for this rite of passage. But it was only like when I visited my mother, or when I went through the Wataska, was really deep for me, because I was truly witnessed and held, and I felt like I deserved it for once in my life, instead of feeling like, oh, I hope I'm not wasting anyone's time kind of thing. So it is on so many levels touches that mother to make them feel seen and appreciated, and welcome them over like, hey, you're a mom. Nice to see you. And we appreciate the journey you've been on. Without it, you wouldn't be here.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. That's the whole purpose of this, is that honoring and that holding and that tending to, um, in honor of who you once were and who you will always be in some way, shape, or form, right? Because just because you become a mother, and even if you become a mother, and even if you go through this ceremony and this honoring and this community support and come back, like, maiden in you is still always going to exist. Mother is always going to continuously evolve. And so it's that witnessing piece as well of who you once were, who you still are as a part of you, and who you now are and who you are becoming, in honor of this intergenerational healing. I really see it as that too, right? Like, so often I hear from mothers all the time too of like, oh, I really wish I would have received this, whatever offering it is that I'm currently doing, or I wish I would have received this in my early postpartum time. And one thing I really want to anchor into this conversation as well is like, postpartum is forever. So it's never too late. It's never too early, and it's never too late to receive this. And so if you didn't receive a closing of the bone ceremony in your first 6 weeks postpartum, or your first year, or your first 2 years, or any sort of postpartum tending to or honoring of your rite of passage at any point, it's never too late. We can come back and we can honor and hold you at any point, so that you can be seen and witnessed through the entirety of what this journey has been for you as well.
Yeah, it was 3 years for me, almost 3 years, 2.5 years. But it felt like it was the day after, honestly. It literally took me back. And I also wanted to share that I feel as well for the whole family. So with the ceremonies that you've held, I'm sure you're going to share very soon about them. I'm curious about how you noticed it affected the family, because this was the first time for us that Araya couldn't just have my body. She couldn't just pull my breast out and breastfeed. She was with daddy, and I had to lay back and witness that in motion, the energy of her wanting me, and also him kind of what are we going to do right now? And having to step more into his role. So it was very nourishing for all of us, because there was this then piece like Araya realized that daddy is a safe place. Even if things feel uncomfortable or don't seem familiar, like he's a safe space. And he also realized like, oh yeah, even if she gets cries or upset, I don't have to just pass her to you. I can hold this. So there was a big evolution of the word. We evolved as a family. So that was
Yeah.
really deeply nourishing for us all.
Mhm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that is such a really big piece as well. I've done the closing of the bones on someone at 6 weeks postpartum, at 2 months postpartum, at 30 years postpartum, and everything in between as well. And at my first ceremony that I did, I was so honored and grateful to be able to do it to my best friend. She lives in Toronto, and so I had gone out there for her last 2 weeks of the first 6 weeks postpartum to hold her and honor her and tend to her. The day that I left to come home, right before I got dropped off at the airport, her husband and I did it together, so that he was on one end of the rebozo and I was on the other end, as this kind of transfer of care. So that her mom had been there for the first few weeks, and then I came in, and now here he is. He needs to step into his role as father too, and how to transfer this care over to him. And that was a really beautiful and interesting experience. He didn't get it in the deep sense of what it all truly meant, but for me to be on one end and for him to be on the other end. And what was interesting was the baby did cry. And this happens frequently. There were many women who shared this in the postpartum care course, but also that I have experienced too, of especially when it comes to breasts and womb, when we are holding over that space, is because like this is the home of the baby, right? Especially that early on. And so to be able to communicate with the baby of it's okay, like I can hear you right now. I can see that you yourself are having an experience of mother being closed back up here, but that doesn't mean that your home is no longer here, right? And so to hold the baby in what their experience and expression is while we are holding the mother too. I had one ceremony at about it was about 2 or 3 months postpartum. And she had had a cesarean, and there was so much around all of that. And also just a little bit of context on how I hold ceremonies as well is we start off by like preconception to postpartum storytelling. So take me back to what your journey was, who you were before all of this, what your conception journey was like. What did you experience and process through pregnancy? What was your birth story like? And then what has your postpartum journey been like so far as well? So that is this witnessing piece of who she was in this entirety of the journey before. And then we do an integration meditation to go back into what that experience was and to see what pieces of wisdom we can harvest from the entirety of that experience too, because lots of times trauma comes up and past experiences will come up as well. So how can you draw wisdom out of those experiences to carry you through into your mothering journey now? And then we do this closing up practice. But to be able to speak to the babies and the children when they're there of what their experience is. And that wasn't something that these mothers had ever thought of. And so it's this way to honor the mother baby dyad as well. But also how this affects the family unit is when mothers are seen and witnessed and supported and held and brought back to a state of thriving, then children and families and communities will also thrive. Is this understanding that mothers are the center of community. And so when we can come back and hold and honor and tend to a mother wherever she's currently at, so that she feels seen and witnessed and honored, then that's going to change her relationship with her baby, with her partner, with her family, with her community. And community might not necessarily understand that, but this is this bridge that we're building, right? Um, and so yeah, when we can, yeah, that's the whole basis. That's the long-term goal of postpartum care as well, is when mothers can feel held and honored and be thriving, then that's going to ripple out into everyone and everything else in some way, shape,
Mhm.
or form. So I see that as one of the biggest benefits.
That's
Not
so,
just like the physiological
yeah.
holding, but like that energetic holding as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love them questions that you ask. I'm going to write them in the notes so that for people that are supporting the mother and kind of really want to show up fully to be able to see the mother before and ask these questions. And I'm sure it'll be very surprising the responses that they get and that deeper connection. I know for me and my partner, we met and then 5 months later I was pregnant. So he didn't know me before, just knew me as this pregnant woman and now with a baby. So it's like getting to know that part of you because, like you said, she still exists. It's just then there's this transformation as well to become the mother. And I feel like you also heal something from any traumas that have been held through your lineage as well. I spoke to my mother about her birth experience and she said, like, I just wish I got the care. Like, I wish somebody was there to hold me because it was a surprise for her as well. I kind of relived her story, but her family kind of rejected us both as well. They wanted an abortion. So I knew that by doing this and by her witnessing me go through, see people caring for me and how I was caring for myself and the things that I was speaking about, it made her, a part of her realize, like, oh, I deserve that as well. And also how beautiful that I get to witness my daughter experiencing these times too. And I feel also like my daughter, we went through kind of a traumatic birth experience, like I did anyway, I would say that. When I was going through my own healing journey with the Tasker, and when I was having different practices, when people were sharing different practices with me to support my healing, I noticed how she shifted as well in herself. She softened. It's almost like she was like, oh, like I something clicked inside in her. And if there was any kind of block, I don't know how to describe it, but like if there was something kind of irritating, there was a dissolving of that. And definitely I felt a difference in our energy as a collective, as a family. So that was just so beautiful to experience.
Wow. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that's one of the pieces that I witness so frequently as well that most people don't understand, right? Again, it's back to this, if mother is held and seen and witnessed, then that is going to be reparative and supportive for the baby and for the family too, because babies have their own journeys when they come earthside as well. We forget about that. We forget about what, like, here they just spent 9 months growing in this warm, cozy, dark, safe space. And then here they come out into the world and there's so much. And so I'm sure like you're learning and will continue to learn through the physiological baby care course too, just like what that deep connection can be and how, yeah, we can repair lots of birth traumas, not only for ourselves, but for the children and for intergenerational healing to come as well.
Wow. So sorry, I've taken you over by 5 minutes. I said 45 minutes on this conversation, but look, I could just sit and talk to you forever. I would love for you to share where we can find you and if you have your offerings online or in person, please take this time to share with our listeners.
Thank you so much. I do have a couple online offerings. I do virtual support. So whether you are local to me or not, it's virtual text and voice messaging support. I use WhatsApp and I do most of my offerings on a sliding scale basis as well, because I honor and acknowledge the financial resourcing gaps that mothers have, and that many mothers will put the care of their children and babies ahead of their own as well. So I do my best to make my offerings as financially accessible as possible. So for anyone who is looking for virtual support, that's my online offering. And then I have lots of in-home care packages as well. that I offer to people in my local community, and they're all based on the 5 essentials of postpartum care. So I have a rest, warmth, and body care package where I have a different menu of certain packages or offerings like castor oil packs or herbal baths or yoga and meditation, where I come into the home and create this warm, restful, cozy space for a mother and sit with her and witness and share tea and muffins and create this sanctuary for her to be held and deeply rest. So that's one of my offerings. Nourishment is a really big piece of my work right now. I weave it into all of my packages. So I do delivery care packages to people local to my community. And then I'll also go into homes of whether you're pregnant or postpartum and do big batch cook, stockpile your fridge and your freezer with really nutrient dense food. And then my community care package, which is what I just described. It's the birth storytelling, it's the integration meditation, and then it's the closing of the bones practice where I come in and we do all of that. And I have done that practice on my friend who went through a really big transition in her life, separating from her partner of 12 years. She was not pregnant, but she had that really expansive experience, then coming back to who she is now on her own. I've done this practice on a mother who had been trying to conceive for 8 years and had had a really traumatic loss and had never told anyone about it. 3 weeks after we did this practice to honor her conception journey and her miscarriage, 3 weeks later, she found out she was pregnant and is now in her second trimester as well. And I've also done this on my mom, who no longer has a womb. She's had a hysterectomy and she had a heart attack. She said after she received this practice from me, she felt like her heart was healed and like she had her womb again. And so it is really one of these beautiful practices that I'm so honored and grateful to be able to hold many different women in. And so, yeah, those are my in-person packages. I will hopefully be doing some more online offerings coming up as well. I have a blog too. So I have a lot more information. I've written a lot about all of these different pieces. So you can check that out on my website, blissfulwombcare.com. You can connect with me on Instagram at blissfulwombcare. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I think you've got me nearly crying twice when you told me your mum thing. I'm like, okay, tears are coming again. Here they go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything that you're doing and showing up in the world. I will put all of your information in the show notes with links to everything that you've just shared.